So you've got fasting on one hand that is great for your mental clarity, great for fat loss, great for resetting your body, your digestive tract, and then there's the bulking. And so as a young skinny guy that's trying to add muscle, and you don't know who to listen to, and on one hand you're listening to professional bodybuilders and reading Muscle Mag. I don't think anyone really reads Muscle Mag anymore, but when I was in my 20s, I would read Muscle Mag. Branch Warren, Mike O'Hearn, Nasser, these mutant bodybuilders. I never wanted to look like them, but hey, I mean, I want to listen to what they're saying. They seem to know what's up, right? So welcome to Tactical Nutrition, guys. It's Ben. And in this video, I want to talk about fasting versus, eating a lot of calories. And there's so much debate and misinformation. I hate to use that word because it sounds egotistical, but there's so many different ideas floating around out there. And so I want to tell you guys my personal story. I've said before, I was 170 pounds at like age 18, got into college, I went to school for health promotion, exercise science, nutrition, etc. And I was starting to learn about nutrition, starting to learn about strength conditioning and doing things correctly, compound movements, etc. to add muscle and become more athletic. And I put on, over time, about 50 pounds of muscle to where I'm currently at. Now I'm 41 years old, so it's been a while, but I have been able to maintain. But what I was doing at that time, guys, was eating like a horse. Now, granted, I was very active. I was not only working out pretty much every day, but we were playing like intramural sports. So we'd play volleyball, we'd play dodgeball, which, believe it or not, dodgeball was like one of the most intense and fun sports out there. I mean, it was called trench ball. It's a different type of dodgeball, but anyway, it was two 20-minute halves, so 40 minutes total, and you'd sit out every once in a while, but I mean, you're running around because we're super competitive, and I was a pitcher. We had a lot of baseball players, so we're just pelting people. Anyway, that's not the point. What I'm trying to say is, like, I was walking to class, I was working out, I was biking around. Our friends and us, we were all very active, so like we'd be outside throwing the football, throwing the baseball around, throwing frisbees, going out to parks, playing softball, and working out. Being very, very active, right? Very active throughout the day when we're not sitting in class. And so I just started doing what I think a lot of you guys should do out there if you're a young, skinny guy, which is meal prepping. I mean, I knew that I had to meal prep. I could not just sit there and keep making food 5 times a day. So what I would do, honestly, is I would make these giant vats of like chili, right? I would add all types of things into this thing. So I'd have like Tupperwares full of this chili, and it was tasty because I'd add ground beef, tons of ground beef, beans, chili beans, kidney beans. I'd add mushrooms. I'd add like black olives. I would just make this slurry, peppers, hot sauce, whatever I wanted. But a lot of meat in there. Sometimes throw chicken, whatever. And then I would just keep that in Tupperware. And it's not all I ate, because we'd also go out to the campus, I guess like cafeteria, where we were actually able to eat like 3 times a day with our little point card. So there I'd have pasta, pizza, and all types of stuff. So just eating like a horse. And I didn't really count my calories. This is what I recommend people do. I mean, counting calories is kind of good at first, just to get an idea of how, like, especially if you're trying to lose weight. If you're trying to gain weight and you're eating relatively clean, all you're doing is paying attention to like 3 things. How do I look? How much do I weigh? And how do I feel? Do I feel like I'm getting stronger? Do I feel like I have a lot of energy? Is the weight going up? And am I noticing it in the mirror? If you go from 170 pounds, I'm a pretty tall guy, 6'4", But if you go from 170 to 185 pounds, and I was at like super low body fat at the time, guys. I mean, like 6%. I was naturally very skinny, but I was adding muscle and staying at 6%. You're going to notice that in the mirror. You're going to notice it in the gym. Obviously, my strength was going up. So that's what I recommend. And now here's an interesting thing that I want to go into in this video. And then this is about fasting versus, eating like a horse. And it's somewhere in between. Is that, again, like so many of these younger dudes that I meet that want to get into fitness, and they're kind of like the wannabe bodybuilders. I mean, they're not going to compete or anything, but they just want to, like, I don't know. They want to train like a bodybuilder for whatever reason. And they're really afraid of fasting. Now, here's the thing. Eating like a horse all the time does have its detriments because your body never really, your body's growing while you sleep. Sleep is super important. But your digestive tract never really has time to rest. It's constantly digesting food. So fasting is a lot more about health, and eating a ton is more about your fitness goals. So that's why I think cyclical fasting, so to speak, having like high carb days, low carb days. I've talked about these other videos. I'll talk about them in future videos about cycling your carbs and cycling your days in terms of how much you eat. But here's the story about me is when I was like in my late 20s, and granted the metabolism does slow down a little bit. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But I was at like my, 205 pounds, 210 pounds, same body fat, really active still, but I was kind of always experimenting on myself when I would read about all this nutrition and stuff. I think it's a good idea to implement it into your own life and see what happened. So I started doing intermittent fasting, and I kind of cut the calories, definitely cut a couple meals. And what I noticed was my weight was not dropping. I mean, if I really went over the top, but my weight wasn't going down. And to this day, like now, my weight, I could have a whole day of fasting. And like, because of water weight, that's a lot of times what the weight you're going to lose when you do like a fast is like your body's going to, you're going to lose a lot of water weight. So on the scale might drop. The scale for me will easily fluctuate 6 or 7 pounds a day. But as soon as I hydrate up and have a meal, I'm right back up there. So what I'm saying is, it's interesting how your body, once you gain, this is a testament to doing the proper compound lifting, which I've gone into in other videos. I'm trying to keep this on point, not go into too many different topics here, but it all goes together because this is aimed at skinny guys. Again, if you do compound movements, I was doing squat, deadlift, bench pretty much 3 times a week in college. That's how I put on the weight, I think, and the strength. I would alternate the order, and I would throw in some other exercises afterwards, but I was doing that mainly. Just watching how much is my deadlift, how much is my squat, how much is my bench, overhead press, things like that. Are they moving? That's all that mattered to me. I didn't care. I mean, you want your biceps to look good naturally, but I didn't really care that much about like how much I'm curling or something. And when you add that kind of weight, that kind of muscle to your body, it stays, right? It has a tendency to stick around. Whereas if you're someone that just does a lot of isolation moves, curls, tricep extensions, etc., you'll notice that that muscle will go away very quickly. And it's because it's pump muscle. It's not like dense muscle. It's not strong dense muscle is what I'm saying. So I would notice that when I was fasting, like I wouldn't, I'd hit these like, I don't want to use the word plateau, but kind of in a way, like I'd hit these like numbers as I was moving up for 170 pounds. It was really hard to get to 180, but once I got there, I'd stay. Then I got to 190, then it was like 195, 200, 205 was kind of like where I hit this point where even if I started fasting at 205, like I've done like 3-day fast, 72-hour fast, and I'll lose a little bit of weight, but I'll be popped right back up there as soon as I start eating. And so that's what I'm saying is you should do compound movements, because your body will, it's almost like a thermostat where your body puts on this size and then it kind of remembers. I can't really prove that through scientific research in this video, but maybe I'll look into it in the future. But like, again, I've gone into about dense muscle and how it physically will, like, it physically strengthens the cells. It's almost like the foundation, like the struts or whatever on a skyscraper, like the foundational stuff, the cement, that's what's happening in your cell, is that gets larger, and that stays longer, and that comes from the heavy lifting. But what I'm trying to say here is, once you hit the goal and then you can start fasting, because it's more about health, because you don't want to just cram yourself. This is kind of goes into the bulking, the dirty bulking that I've seen, where I've seen some guys at my gym that bulk up, and frankly, they look like shit. I mean, I'm just being honest with them. It's like, okay, you gained 60 pounds, but you're fat. You're literally, your face looks fat. Yeah, you're stronger. And then they come back, and then you go into the cut, and they come back, and it's like, you look just the same as you did last time. And you lost the fat that you gained because you were just eating a ton. That's not healthy. So fasting is for health, and don't be afraid to do intermittent fasting. Even if unless you're on a specific like bodybuilding goal, obviously, where like you're trying to be a heavyweight bodybuilder, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about Dorian Yates and Nasser here, the 330 pound, 7% body fat freaks of nature, okay? I'm talking about the average person, the skinny guys. But fasting is more for health. And what it'll do is, like Tim Ferriss in his book, 4-Hour Work Week, he'd talk about doing 72-hour fast before he would do big speaking engagements, because it clears the mind. Your brain clears up. You will notice that you're thinking clear. And then one of the reasons is that, again, like when you fast, you're really giving your body a chance to heal, And when you actually do it, you'll notice like I'll still work out when I'm fasting, and I'll still work out pretty heavy. I may not go for like 10 out of 10 intensity on squat and deadlift, but I'm still lifting heavy. I'm still moving around. I'm definitely like outside being athletic, and you'll be fine. Like our society has really ingrained in us, and there is propaganda behind this that I'm not going to get into. If you want to look into like Edward Bernays and where breakfast came from, the idea of breakfast, to sell breakfast cereals and bacon to people, essentially. That's why people eat, like throughout history, people really didn't eat breakfast that much. But that's what we've been told, is that you need to eat. What have we been told? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's bullshit. Like I've seen people, like I'll tell my nutrition clients, and just jokingly, like, look, the last thing you need in the morning is a bunch of carbohydrates that are going to bog you down for the whole day. And so anyway, going back to like the effects of fasting is like, what's good to do is like every once in a while do a really long fast. 24, 48, 72-hour fast where I do a water fast. I will drink water, and I will have some supplements actually that I'll take, multivitamins, stuff like that, but there's no calories. It's very low effect on your digestive tract, stress. Just to make sure I'm getting, I don't know. That's just what I like to do. And I drink a lot of water, and I will drink electrolytes and some salt and stuff like that. But you'll notice your body, like, when you fast, you might, like, be on the toilet a little bit more. your body finally has a time to clear out. And it's like you'll notice that like your skin will get clearer, your hair might even get stronger, your eyesight can get better. All of these things because fasting gives your body time to reroute blood, reroute energy to all of these organs that have been getting blasted by this constant barrage of food. And now think of the average American who's just consuming massive amounts of processed foods. They're usually very overweight, diabetic. Their sugar regulation systems are shot to hell. I mean, realistically, that's gonna bust up your mental clarity as well. But the effect on your organs, your digestive tract, your intestines, right, your colon, all this stuff is just getting bombarded constantly with stuff that it's having a very hard time digesting. And then you've got your liver that has to deal with all this as well. Your kidneys got to filter this stuff out. Your gallbladder making bile, to deal with all these fats and all this rancid fat. Like all your organs, your digestive organs. Of course, your heart is struggling because you're pumping blood that's like high blood pressure because of all the sugar that's flowing through, all the glucose, gunk, who knows, plastics. So fasting for someone like that is very important and very healthy, but I don't want to go off topic too much. I want to keep this to the fitness skinny guy. Don't be afraid to do fasting every once in a while, and don't be afraid to do intermittent fasting. And what I would say about that is if you're still trying to gain weight, because this is usually what I do. I have breakfast like 4 times a week right now because I'm on a little bit of a bulk. It's just high in protein and fat. There's like almost no carbs. Maybe this morning I had 5 eggs, half a cup of ground beef, a full avocado, some peppers on the side, some hot sauce, and like one little small, I keep my baked red potato. Meal prepped, of course. So there's a bit of carbs in there. But generally, I do intermittent fasting. I eat between like 12 and 8. But the thing is, you can keep the calories too. You can keep the calories up in that window. So you may be cutting out your meal in the morning, and depending on what time you get up and how early you really are eating, you might be cutting out 2 meals at that point. You just have to eat bigger meals or more in the eating window. So there's different ways to do this. But the beauty about the intermittent fast is, again, you're giving your body a large extended period of time to heal. Because let's face it, this is why a lot of guys, a lot of people, targeting guys, but bodybuilders, etc., they peter out in their like 40s and 50s, and by the time they're like in their late 50s, a lot of them are just like having so many problems because they've just been pummeling their body with so much food, and it's usually not the healthiest. And obviously bodybuilders are using steroids, and that's doing a lot of damage as well. But so a lot of these older guys I see at the gym that just look beat up, man, like really beat up. And they're still in there, which I give them credit for that. But there's a fine line between like we want fitness and we want health. We want it all, right? That's kind of what I call as tactical nutrition. Tactical. I mean, it makes sense. Timing, right? We're not just eating willy-nilly. We're not just eating stuff all the time. And then, of course, every once in a while you can turn on the gas, especially if you're a skinny guy. And just keep an eye on how you look and how you feel and how much you weigh. Again, if your weight's moving up and you notice in the mirror and your energy levels are good and you're sleeping all right, whatever you're doing is probably working, all right? And if you have some Pringles or some cupcakes here and there, pancakes, it's not going to kill you, right? So anyway, guys, I hope that made sense. If you like the channel, please subscribe. share, commenting, and liking is the best you can do. And hit me up on my website if you have any interest in doing an actual fitness program, custom programs. I will talk to you guys in the next one.